Greetings, everyone. I'm Larry Williams, the Director of the Center for the Advancement of Research Methods and Analysis, or CARMA, at Virginia Commonwealth University. And I'm pleased to have this opportunity to chat this morning with Dr. Herman Aguinis, who's visiting us from the University of Colorado at Denver to give a webcast lecture this afternoon as part of the Consortium webcast program. Among his many accomplishments, Herman is the past chairperson of the Research Methods Division and outgoing editor of the journal Organizational Research Methods. And we're pleased to have him here giving a webcast lecture, as well as having this chat with me. And he's got a great perspective to offer on the field of research methods within organizational studies. Herman, welcome back to CARMA.
Thank you, Larry. Good morning.
Yeah. So Herman, could you tell us a little bit about how you got interested in research methods?
Well, I started out with a substantive interest. If you think about organizational studies, we usually say that the relationship between two variables depends on a third variable. So that's an interaction effect. So the relationship between A and B depends on C. And if you look at the organizational behavior and human resources management literatures, we see many examples of researchers trying to find these hypothesized interactions, and they don't find them. So myself, I ran into that issue in the area of leadership and social power in OB, and also in the personnel selection area in HR. And I became frustrated with our inability to find interaction effects. I realized that some of the problems were due to the fact that our methods for estimating interactions were very faulty. So I decided to become involved in the research arena myself and try to improve the way we estimate interaction effects. So I started out with a substantive interest, and eventually that led to an interest in methods, in particular how we estimate interaction effects.
Okay. Herman, do you have a favorite research methods course that you took while a graduate student, and if so, why that particular one?
I couldn't get enough courses dealing with stats and methods when I was in grad school. Early on I realized that our ability to advance theory was limited by our ability to implement good methods. And if we didn't have good methods, we wouldn't be able to advance theory. So I took so many from many great professors I had. One course that comes to mind was a one-year two-course sequence on structural equation modeling by Jim Jackard. I'm talking about probably 1991. It's a long time ago, but what really struck me and I took away from that course is the importance of measurement, and how when we measure things such as performance at the individual level of analysis or performance at the organizational level of analysis, which are some of the most central constructs in management, we're dealing with very complex, multifaceted constructs, and we need multifaceted measures. So I really enjoyed that course, not so much for the technical aspects, but for the conceptual issues around measurement.
Okay. Herman, as best you can recall, were there any particular challenges you faced while learning research methods as a graduate student?
As I said earlier, I just couldn't get enough methods courses, and in fact, I think that's a fantastic service that you are providing to the world. I have met with doctoral students from Spain to Argentina, China, South Africa, Australia. Everywhere I go, I meet with doctoral students. They tell me they do not have enough methods courses. They cannot get enough methodological training at their local institution. So I faced that challenge as well in graduate school. I was able to take 7 courses from great methodologists, including Gene Stone Romero and Jim Jackard and others. But I think that was a challenge. And thank you for providing that service to the global community, because that's really addressing a need at a global scale.
Yeah. Well, Herman, I think we understand that you have considerable experience as an author and a reviewer and as an editor of research methods papers. And I was wondering if you could comment, based on your experience, on what you see as the most frequent shortcomings or limitations of the papers that you've been involved with?
That's a great question, and if I had a clear answer, none of my papers would ever be rejected, which is not the case. But related to that issue, 3 colleagues and I recently co-edited a book. Yehuda Baruch, Alison Conrad, myself, and Bill Starbuck. The title of the book is Opening the Black Box of Editorship. And we compiled chapters, by 25 chapters in the book, by past editors of some of the top journals in the United States and Europe in management and related fields. And each of these editors wrote about how they think, how they feel, how they work, how they make decisions about which papers to accept and reject. And it's a wonderful resource because it provides you with different perspectives, macro, micro, qualitative, quantitative. But one issue I learned from reading these chapters is that we have to address the issue of so what and who cares. We have to deal in our papers with the issue of whether this is an important issue for a lot of people. If you can address that convincingly, early on in your manuscript, you will have a very good shot at getting that paper published.
I've asked several people that question, and I've never heard it condensed into 4 words, but I think so what and who cares, that's great that's great guidance to provide. Herman, do you have a favorite research methods book that either influenced you greatly or upon which you rely regularly?
Of course, several. Just choosing one is a difficult task, but probably one of those would be Cohen's Statistical Power Analysis in the Social and Behavioral Sciences. What that book did for the field in terms of creating awareness of the limitations of null hypothesis significance testing is amazing. And also the importance of taking effect sizes into account. Not just understanding whether a relationship is likely to exist in the population or not, but how big is that relationship. Of course, also that book, I think, created the misperception that a large effect as defined by Cohen is an important effect, and a small effect as defined by Cohen is an unimportant effect, which is an incorrect conclusion. But nevertheless, I think that what that book did for the field, for all of us in the social sciences, in terms of understanding that we must go beyond just deciding whether an effect exists and understand the size of the effect, I think that's a fantastic contribution to the field.
Okay. Herman, from a big picture perspective, are there topical areas within the fields of research methods that you think we are doing a particularly good job or a particularly bad job at investigating?
It's funny that you asked. That's related to my webcast in a couple of hours. Chad Pierce and Frank Bosco and Ivan Maslin and I conducted a 10-year review of the first 10 volumes of the journal Organizational Research Methods. And we looked at the topics that methodologists are investigating. At the same time, we also looked at the 25 most influential articles in the Academy of Management Review over the last 20 years. By influential, we mean those articles that have been cited most frequently. In those AMR articles, which are conceptual articles, the concluding section of each article has a section on how that model or those propositions should be tested methodologically. What methodological tools we need to test those models. So what we did is we compared the work that methodologists are doing, as published in Organizational Research Methods, with what the conceptual authors, the authors who are creating conceptual pieces, say they need in terms of methodological tools. We found that about 90% of ORM topics deal with quantitative issues, but about 50% of AMR authors say they need qualitative tools to do their research. So that was the first, in terms of needs, the first need that we detected, which is we need more qualitative work. Also, within quantitative topics in ORM, we found that about half of them were about data analysis issues. Yet, half of the quantitative topics that the AMR authors need are about design. So it looks like the methodologists are doing a lot of quantitative work, mainly emphasizing data analytic issues. But the developers of theories need tools that are both qualitative and quantitative. And they also need more design and also measurement tools. So in terms of gaps, I would say we need more work on design and measurement issues. It is often the case that if your design and measurement are not appropriate, you will not be able to fix problems that you may have via data analysis.
Okay. Herman, do you have any career advice that you'd like to offer to aspiring methodologists?
Take as many courses as you can in graduate school in stats and methods. Become a CARMA member and watch the recorded sessions online. Go to Richmond for the CARMA workshops in May. And by the way, I'm not getting a cut on these suggestions. And lastly, I would say, if you can, when you're in grad school, teach the research methods or stats undergraduate courses, the intro stats, intro methods. There's no better way to learn something really well than to teach it. When you teach stats, you teach methods, that's when you will really learn it. So that would be my final advice.
Okay. Herman, you mentioned in your review included both quantitative and qualitative issues, and I know that in your position as chair and editor of ORM, you've dealt with a lot of topics and parties on both sides. Do you think there are any common misperceptions that quantitative researchers have about those who use qualitative approaches?
Yes, there are, and also it goes the other way. In talking to qualitative researchers, I think they also have stereotypical beliefs about quantitative researchers. And let me start with the beliefs that quantitative researchers have about qualitative researchers is, I would say, that they lack rigor, that qualitative methods are idiosyncratic, and that people cannot replicate qualitative procedures. In the July 2008 issue of Organizational Research Methods, we have published a set of articles that address each of those issues head-on. So if you're a quantitative researcher and you have any of those beliefs that qualitative research lacks rigor, is idiosyncratic, and cannot be replicated, I suggest you read the July 2008 issue of ORM. Now, if you talk to some qualitative researchers, they will say that quantitative researchers are number crunchers. They cannot think theoretically, conceptually, and that they lack thinking skills. They just, the quantitative approaches are not able to capture dynamic and complex organizational phenomena. But also those are misconceptions. If you look at recent developments in the quantitative arena, you see many methods that deal with longitudinal data structures, capturing complex phenomena that take place over time. You see an enormous literature on multi-level modeling issues, which is looking at relationships between the individual, the group, and the organizational level of analyses. So I think that organizational phenomena do not care if you're a qualitative researcher or a quantitative researcher. We need to develop theories that explain organizational phenomena. And we should see the methodological approaches as tools that would allow us to reach that goal and not get enamored with a specific approach because that becomes a limitation that doesn't allow us to to solve the issue, which is to develop theories that will explain organizational phenomena.
Okay. Herman, related to this issue of qualitative and quantitative methods, do you think we've made any progress in organizational studies in the use of mixed methods approaches to research?
Absolutely. As our theories become more complex, theory developers have demanded better methodological tools. By mixed, I would say we ought to mix different things. First, epistemological approaches, qualitative, quantitative. We should also try to mix or bridge levels of analysis, micro and macro. We should also think about different types of designs, longitudinal designs, cross-sectional designs, in terms of the location of our studies, lab, field, in terms of the samples we use, student samples, MBA samples, working student samples, organizational member samples. In fact, we are, 3 colleagues and I, in the process of editing a special issue of the Journal of Management on the topic of bridging micro and macro research domains. We see an increasing level of specialization in the field of management in terms of not only methods. I am qualitative, well, I am quantitative. Also in terms of levels of analysis, I am micro, I am macro. And it has become an identity issue. People define themselves as micro, macro, qualitative, quantitative. And I don't believe that is helpful in terms of advancing theory. So in terms of mixed approaches, we should think about mixing not only methods, methodological approaches, but also levels of analysis, location of our studies, longitudinal design versus cross-sectional design. And again, the greatest contributions will come when we try to understand organizational phenomena, not just from one perspective, but from multiple perspectives.
Okay. Herman, would you comment on the changes that you've seen in the area of qualitative methods by organizational researchers over the past 15 years?
Sure. The ORM review that we conducted of articles published in the first decade of organizational research methods from 1998 to 2007, we found some trends in terms of increasing interest in specific qualitative methods. For example, narrative interpretation was one of them, qualitative sequence analysis, the use of computers to analyze text and other qualitative information. So there are advances in the qualitative arena. And also, going back to that paper, we need to remember that about 50% of authors of the most influential articles in the Academy of Management Review need better qualitative tools. So we have to try to address the needs of our customers, which are the substantive researchers who need better methods to test their theories. So I think qualitative was one of their needs, and we need to address that in the next decade.
Okay. Finally, Herman, last question. Could you just give us a quick summary of what some of your own current research projects are involved with?
My general themes in terms of research are organizational responsibility, ethics, and diversity, domestically and internationally. And when I say that, people look at me, well, what do you really do? That's very broad. So I try to go back to the traditional definitions in terms of discipline. So my research is in organizational behavior. I have a number of topic projects dealing with leadership, social power and influence, workplace romance, and sexual harassment. I have a number of projects in the HR domain, dealing with performance management, training and development, and staffing decision-making. And also I have a number of projects in the research methods domain, most of those dealing with interaction effects and also with novel methods, new methods that will help substantive researchers make new discoveries and test their theories in more efficient ways.
Okay. Well, that concludes this chat with Herman Aguinis. As I mentioned earlier, Herman, you've been a great contributor to CARMA over the years. We really appreciate you taking the time from your schedule and coming so far. I might also add that Herman is a great drummer, along with Jeff Stanton and Jeff Edwards comprise the CARMA band that plays at the CARMA short courses, and very talented guy, and we're very glad to have him back visiting.
Thank you so much, Larry.